It happened in an instant, no sirens, no warnings. Just a fireball tearing through the sky, and then silence. A civilian plane full of Hajj pilgrims obliterated on a Yemeni runway. Within minutes, protests erupted. The Houthis pointed the finger at Israel. And what came next? A military buildup unlike anything we've seen in years. Satellite images show launchers, convoys, and warheads, dozens of them on the move. Not for show, for war. Defense experts now warn, a saturation strike is imminent. Hundreds of missiles and drones could be launched in a single wave, designed to overwhelm Israel's Iron Dome. But here's the twist: behind the Houthis are shadows of global giants. Iran, Russia, even China. What started with one missile could now spiral into something the world is not ready for. It began without warning. No sirens, no alerts, just smoke, fire, and confusion. Within minutes, the world turned its attention back to the Middle East, a region already simmering with tension. Now, it holds its breath, because what's coming next might not just redraw maps, it could ignite something far greater. To understand how we got here, we must return to a quiet runway in Yemen, where everything changed. It was supposed to be a sacred journey. A civilian aircraft, reportedly carrying Hajj pilgrims, was preparing for takeoff from a Yemeni airport when it was suddenly struck by a missile. The explosion tore through the plane without warning. Within seconds, dozens were dead: men, women, and elderly pilgrims killed in what should have been a moment of peace. This wasn't a military base. There were no soldiers, just families in Iran preparing for a spiritual voyage. That's what shocked the region most: the sheer brutality of striking an unarmed civilian aircraft during one of Islam's holiest seasons. The Houthis immediately blamed Israel, accusing it of launching a deliberate strike on innocent Muslims. Images of the wreckage flooded local media, bodies covered in white shrouds, fragments of the aircraft littering the tarmac, and grieving relatives crying out for justice. Crowds erupted in protest across Sana'a, with chants demanding retribution. Religious leaders condemned the attack as an assault not just on civilians, but on Islam itself. International observers have yet to confirm who launched the missile. But inside Yemen, the verdict was swift. The Houthis labeled it a war crime and vowed a powerful retaliation. Their statement was clear: the skies over the Middle East were about to change, and not in Israel's favor. And this time, it wasn't just rhetoric. What followed was a massive military mobilization. Satellite images soon revealed convoys of missile trucks and launchers moving across northern Yemen, not for parade, for war. Intelligence sources confirmed dozens of mobile launch platforms being positioned in strategic locations, some hidden in mountain terrain, others in desert plains. Analysts described it as the largest ballistic deployment the Houthis have ever attempted. Unlike their past salvos, this wasn't about sporadic strikes. The Houthis were planning something coordinated, something built for impact. They weren't just stockpiling weapons, they were assembling a battlefield. Each launcher appeared fitted with upgraded guidance systems, possibly intended to bypass Israeli missile defense networks like Iron Dome or Arrow 3. Defense officials now warned that the Houthis are preparing a saturation strike, one designed to overwhelm Israeli defenses through sheer volume and speed. The fear is not just about the number of missiles, but about what they might be carrying and who might be helping. This shift marks a new phase in Houthi warfare. Rather than launching one-off rockets, they're building towards something strategic, deliberate, and potentially devastating. The timeline for such an operation remains unclear, but signs point to coordination with other regional powers. Whether or not Israel was behind the airport strike, one thing is certain: it has awakened a storm. And in the days ahead, the skies over the Middle East may glow with more than just sunlight, they may burn. Stay tuned, this is just the beginning. This isn't just revenge, it's strategy. Experts warn that the Houthis' response to the deadly airport strike in Yemen is shaping up to be far more than symbolic. They're not just retaliating for the lives lost, they're seizing the moment to demonstrate that they can act like a state-level military force, using advanced planning, strategic coordination, and overwhelming firepower. What's unfolding is not a traditional tit-for-tat retaliation. The Houthis are preparing something far more dangerous, a saturation assault. This tactic is designed to overwhelm an enemy's defenses by launching a massive, coordinated barrage of missiles and drones in a short period of time. The idea is simple: fire so many projectiles at once that Israel's advanced missile defense systems, like Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow, simply cannot stop them all. Normally, these Israeli systems are highly effective. Each is designed to intercept specific types of threats. Iron Dome targets short-range rockets, David's Sling handles medium-range threats, and the Arrow system is designed for long-range ballistic missiles, but they have limitations. Every interceptor missile takes a few seconds to launch and has a finite number of ready-to-fire units. If dozens or even hundreds of threats come in at once, the defense systems may become overwhelmed, allowing some missiles or drones to slip through. This is the crux of the Houthi plan: break Israel's shield not with one blow, but with a storm. Military analysts say the Houthis are combining various types of weapons: short-range rockets, long-range ballistic missiles, kamikaze drones, and electronic warfare tactics like radar jamming and GPS spoofing. It's a tactic inspired by Iran's previous strikes, and it shows the extent of coordination behind the scenes. This isn't just a rush of emotion, it's a calculated military operation. The goal isn't simply to hit Israeli targets, it's to paralyze response systems, confuse radar, and exhaust air defense capabilities before the main wave of attacks even lands. Israeli officials are treating the threat with the utmost seriousness. The government has raised its national alert level, particularly across southern cities like Beersheba, Ashkelon, and Ashdod, areas likely to face incoming fire. To counter the looming threat, Israel is rapidly redeploying its missile defense systems, repositioning Iron Dome batteries, and enhancing radar coverage along its southern frontier. The urgency of the situation has pushed Israel to coordinate closely with the United States. Tel Aviv has formally requested advanced radar systems, additional interceptor missiles, and satellite-based early warning tools from Washington. According to regional defense sources, U.S. forces in the Middle East are already on high alert, integrating surveillance and missile tracking systems with Israel's air defense network. Joint drills between U.S. and Israeli defense units have quietly ramped up in recent days, underscoring the gravity of the threat. But this confrontation is bigger than just Israel and the Houthis. Evidence continues to mount that the missile buildup in Yemen is being supported and possibly orchestrated by foreign powers. Iran is believed to be the primary backer, providing the Houthis with missile designs, satellite navigation assistance, and drone manufacturing support. Tehran has long used the Houthis as a proxy force in its regional strategy to encircle and weaken Israel. More concerning, however, is the growing suggestion that other players may be involved. Intelligence analysts have tracked components used in recent Houthi drones back to Chinese-made parts. There are also signs of Russian logistical support, potentially offered through shadow networks that operate in Syria and the Red Sea corridor. Moscow and Beijing have both denied direct involvement, but their fingerprints, technical, financial, and political, are increasingly visible. What started as a single missile strike in Yemen may now be on the verge of sparking a wider conflict. The skies over the Middle East are shifting, and with powerful actors maneuvering behind the scenes, the next wave of fire may ignite more than just a regional clash. It could trigger a much larger confrontation. The tools, training, and targeting systems now in Houthi hands didn't all originate in Yemen. Intelligence sources reveal that many of the advanced missile and drone platforms aimed at Israel have been supplied, upgraded, or supported by Iran's military. This isn't just ideological alignment, it's battlefield coordination. Experts say the level of precision in the Houthis' current preparations suggests Iran's direct operational involvement. It's no longer just about rhetoric or regional influence. Tehran appears to be helping manage the logistics of war. But Iran is not the only foreign player involved. Leaked intelligence reports suggest Russia may also be offering indirect support. to the Houthis, perhaps through intelligence sharing or by transferring battlefield experience gained in Syria. Russia's involvement likely remains behind the scenes, avoiding direct fingerprints but still influencing strategy. China's role is more subtle but no less important. While Beijing hasn't openly backed the Houthis, civilian-grade technologies components for drones, satellite navigation units, and microprocessors are finding their way into Houthi weapons systems. These dual-use technologies are legal to export on paper, but easily repurposed for military functions. Analysts now believe some of this tech is helping guide the long-range missiles being prepped for launch toward Israeli territory. Together, these foreign connections point to something much larger than a regional skirmish. A proxy war is emerging. While the Houthis are the ones firing the weapons, the fingerprints of Iran, Russia, and China are increasingly visible in the background. Strategy, supply lines, and electronic warfare tools appear to be sourced far beyond the borders of Yemen. And if even a portion of this strategy works, if just a fraction of the missiles break through Israel's defense layers, the results could be catastrophic. Analysts warn that key Israeli assets could be at risk: air bases, international airports, high-tech industrial zones, and even naval ports. These are not symbolic targets. They are central to Israel's national defense and economy. Disabling even one of these would have major consequences. This threat is particularly alarming because it comes from an unexpected direction. In past conflicts, Israel's primary threats came from Hamas in Gaza or Hezbollah in Lebanon, groups operating from relatively close proximity. The Houthi front, however, introduces a new threat vector from the south. Longer-range missiles and unique flight paths force Israel to rethink its air defense strategy entirely. While Israel's air defense systems Iron Dome, David Sling, and the Arrow have proven their worth against countless attacks, the concept of a coordinated saturation strike changes the game. If hundreds of drones and missiles are launched simultaneously, the volume alone could overwhelm even the most sophisticated intercept systems. In this case, defense capacity isn't just about technology, it's about scale and timing. But the greater danger may not be the physical damage. It's the psychological and strategic consequences of a successful strike. A breach in Israel's air defense network would shake public confidence, disrupt military command and control structures, and embolden enemy forces across the region. In a conflict zone as volatile as the Middle East, even a momentary perception of vulnerability can trigger wider escalations. The pressing question now is, how will Israel respond? There is growing speculation that Israel is preparing for direct airstrikes on Houthi positions in Yemen. This would open a third front, with Gaza and Lebanon already active combat zones. Expanding operations to Yemen presents a serious logistical challenge. It would require long-range strike aircraft, aerial refueling, and advanced intelligence, all of which may require assistance from the United States. Inside the Israeli government, military leaders are divided. Some argue for restraint, warning of overextension. Others, particularly hardliners in the defense establishment, believe a strong response is the only viable option. They argue that failing to strike now would allow the Houthis and their foreign backers to continue preparing for a second, even more destructive wave. Either way, the Middle East stands on the edge of another escalation, one that could stretch far beyond Yemen or Israel. As tensions escalate across the Middle East, Washington is quietly urging restraint. U.S. officials are pressing Israel to act with caution, warning that an aggressive air campaign against Yemen could inadvertently trigger a much larger regional war. The concern is clear. Any direct hit on Yemen's missile infrastructure might pull Iran even deeper into the conflict, or worse, provoke a coordinated response from a powerful trio of adversaries: Iran, Russia, and China. But while American diplomats advise patience, time is rapidly running out. Intelligence reports suggest that dozens of Houthi missile launchers are already in firing position, with warheads mounted and targeting data loaded. For Israel, every hour brings new risks. Waiting too long might result in devastating losses. Acting too soon could spark a war on multiple fronts from Gaza to Lebanon and now potentially Yemen. This is more than just a bilateral conflict. What began with a missile strike on a civilian aircraft in Yemen has evolved into a proxy confrontation of global significance. It's no longer just the Houthis and Israel. Behind the scenes, a new power alignment is taking shape, a triad of Iran, Russia, and China that appears to be testing how far it can push before the West reacts. Each member of this axis plays a unique role. Iran supplies the Houthis with ballistic missiles, drone technology, and battlefield training. These tools have transformed a once ragtag militia into a formidable, long-range threat. Russia, drawing on years of combat experience in Syria, is believed to be sharing surveillance data and strategic insights with its regional allies. And China, though less overt, is suspected of providing commercial-grade components such as microchips, navigation units, and telemetry modules that can be easily converted into military-grade systems. These contributions, though individually subtle, collectively enable groups like the Houthis to wage war with a sophistication once unimaginable. The goal, analysts say, may extend far beyond simply hurting Israel. It could be part of a broader strategy to exhaust U.S. attention, drain Western military resources, and chip away at the current balance of power in the Middle East. In effect, the Houthis may be acting as a test case, probing whether regional actors, backed by global powers, can reshape the security landscape by confronting Western allies. Indirectly, this isn't a new concept, but the scale and stakes are higher than ever. If the violence spreads beyond Israel and Yemen, if it reaches Egypt, Jordan, or the Gulf states, the fallout could be immense. Critical oil shipping routes through the Red Sea could be disrupted, triggering spikes in global energy prices. Cross-border clashes could lead to food supply shortages, further destabilizing economies already under strain. And if refugee flows increase, the humanitarian crisis could rival or exceed what the region saw during the height of the Syrian civil war. The United Nations has already sounded the alarm. In a recent emergency session, top UN officials warned that the Middle East may be approaching its most volatile moment in 2 decades. The Security Council is calling for urgent de-escalation talks, but diplomatic efforts remain paralyzed by geopolitical divisions. Meanwhile, military buildups continue on all sides. And to think it all started with a single explosion. What began as a missile strike on a civilian plane carrying religious pilgrims has snowballed into a potentially catastrophic confrontation. The Houthis are now preparing what could be the largest missile and drone barrage they've ever launched. Israel is bracing for a multi-layered assault, one that could test even its most advanced defense systems. And across the world, major powers are quietly choosing sides. This is no longer a question of if a strike will come, but when, how severe it will be, and how far the ripples will travel. The Middle East stands on the brink, with the world holding its breath. That's all for now from Navy Secret, your go-to source for military insight and geopolitical analysis. If you found this video informative, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us deliver more high-quality, fact-based coverage. Until next time, stay alert, stay informed.